Well, good evening. Seems like a long time since I made a video. Friday morning I did the video for today, and this is the video for Sunday, and it's already getting up near 10 o'clock. It'll be 10 o'clock by the time I finish, probably, or thereabout. Anyway, this is actually the third title that I put. I started with a title called Opening the Seven Seals, I believe. Let me just look up there. Why is it? Yeah, Opening the Seven Seals, and then I had Reunifying Man Becoming Whole Again, and I finally changed a third title, Healing the Inner Teenager. Most people involved in human growth and rising consciousness are aware of the term inner child. As I sit and ponder my video for Monday, April 28th, following an amazing workshop weekend, I decided to share a bit about my own experience. I call it Healing the Inner Teenager because it deals with my own transition from childhood to adulthood and the formation of my attitude toward relationships and sexuality. In every workshop, human issues arise that present the opportunity for introspection and, if we so choose, for redefining our experience. Is it possible to reframe our past in order to liberate liberate our present and create a more fulfilling future? I don't have all the answers yet. However, I am committing myself to a path of discovery. As I choose to consider different possibilities than I have considered before, I feel both a sense of apprehension and excitement. If you've listened to videos over the past week, you know I've been dealing with relationships quite a bit. And in the workshop, one of the co-facilitators, or one of the assistants, made a broad sweeping release, if you will, for all the pain that men have caused women in the course of what men and women do, the interaction between men and women and all the inappropriate behavior, the inappropriate comments. I mean, over the course of 20 years of doing workshops, I've probably heard practically every form of abuse you can imagine, without exception. And this workshop was no different. There's always issues of abuse because in our relationships with each other, we tend to abuse each other. Wounded people wound other people. And without getting into anybody's particular story, which is against the principles of the workshop, because we do practice confidentiality, I want to say that when this particular lady, who is, as I said, she was not a participant in the workshop, she just felt the need to want to release, and it triggered in me memories of my teenage years when I was developing my first experiential behavior things in regard to interacting with girls and trying to develop relationships. And I flashed back throughout the weekend, different points in time. I was flashing back to some of the early experiences I had. Starting at age, I believe, 14 was the first time that I had a girlfriend. When I say had a girlfriend, I only mean that I had a young lady in church that I was interested in. I never went on a date with her. Once, while we were working on the church bulletin, we had to go to the store to get something, and I held her hand. That was the total amount of physical contact I had with this young lady in 3 years of being infatuated with her. Zero romantic experience. I held her hand. That was a wonderful thing at that time. Now you have to understand that I was raised a fundamentalist Christian. Dancing was a sin. In fact, in my earliest years, television was a sin when it first came out. And so lots of things were forbidden And I've always had a spiritual bent to try to do what I thought was right. And what I thought was right was following rules. So I was really apprehensive of girls in general. And I don't know if that's normal or just a part of my particular upbringing. I would hope that not everybody has to go through what I had to go through. And again, I'm reflecting back to the attitudes that I recognized that I had back then. When I was 17, my friend Roger, whose father had refurbished a 1928 Buick Roadster. Did I tell this story recently? I'm trying to think. I might have told it, but I don't think I told it on video. I might have told somebody else. In fact, I did tell it today. Anyway, we went riding for a little ride, and we stopped at this light, and some girls jumped in the car. We're on the corner, and they were invited to jump in the car with us. And I don't remember exactly how it all ended up, but I ended up with one particular girl. I don't remember her name. All of a sudden, Barbara jumps out at me, but I don't know if that's true or not, because it's been a long time ago. I was 17 years old. I had never been kissed till that day. And we ended up, I experienced my first French kiss, and I want you to know it sent chills up and down my spine. And I got her phone number because I remember calling her after that to ask her on a date. And she said, I wouldn't go out with you. You're not a man, you're a mouse. And I went to my friend Roger and I said, Roger, I asked whatever her name was on a date, and I told him what he said. And he says, I said, what did I do wrong, Roger? He says, well, did you feel her up when you kissed her? I says, no, I wouldn't do anything like that. And he says, well, that's your problem. He says, girls expect you to feel them up, or at least try, you know. And I mean, I just thought that was just out of it. But I still did not have the courage when I went out on dates with some ladies, but I could never get anywhere because they'd always end up after, a few dates of me not doing anything. They'd always end up saying, well, you're like a brother to me. In other words, I can't be romantic with you because you don't give me anything to be romantic about. And the picture that I'm painting of my teenage years is not being willing to even experiment with girls because I didn't want to break any rules. And even into my adult life, I ended up marrying a lady that I wasn't in love with, and she was the mother of my children. Oh, I said I was in love, but looking back, I don't feel I was. And I'm not going to go into details of how that happened, although I did go to my parents the night before the wedding and said, I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. And they said, well, call it off. And I said, I can't, I'm not going to do that. She said she's going to kill herself if I do. But I was a virgin when I got married. And in fact, I was 36 years old the second time I experienced, or the second woman that I experienced sex with, and the first time I experienced sex with a woman that I wasn't married to. First time in my whole life, and I was 36 years old. In any case, even then, I asked permission to give someone a kiss, or permission to touch in any private area. This was my patterning, because religion had shut down basically my lower chakras, sealed off my natural things, because to me, the natural man was enmity against God. It was not subject to the law of God, neither indeed could it be, quoting the Bible. And the carnal mind is death, and all of that stuff that I was brainwashed with. And she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. All of these scriptures, all of these things came. Now I'm going to reframe that. I was wounded as a young man. And yet those wounds probably prevented a lot of grief that I might have gotten into. I've looked back on it with regret as if I was victimized. But in a sense, I was being prepared because, as I said in the workshop today, the best part of my life, at 67 years old, listen to me, I'm saying this at 67 years old, the best part of my life is still ahead of me. It's not behind me, it's ahead of me. My best relationships, or my best relationship, I don't really know yet whether it's going to be one or more than one. I suspect it'll be more than one. My best relationships are in front of me, not behind me. My most amorous adventures, and I'm 67 years old, I believe I haven't experienced them yet. But I've been prepared to know how to honor and respect a woman, and how to listen, and how to nurture a relationship, and to become the man that somebody is going to get to appreciate. And it's all been preparation and building a certain character, a certain willingness to learn from my mistakes and reframe them so that I don't make them again in the future. I don't have to ask for permission. I've learned finally, I think, how to read whether a woman is willing or not willing. Now, I still, most of the time, let the woman make the first move. I very rarely, I don't know if I've ever in my life actually made the first move toward a woman in my whole freaking life. I always let her give me a signal that she's open and willing, and then getting a little better, the lady that I met on the beach, that was just a conversation, and I straight out asked for her phone number. That was that's huge, and I kissed her the first night I met her. That's huge. So I'm making great strides. But I'm healing the inner teenager that was programmed to to fail at relationships, I guess, because I wasn't normal. I was not a normal teenager. I grew up actually believing that all the taboos were something that I had to obey. I know better now. And here I want to drive this point home to all you people that might be listening. The natural man and the spiritual man must become the same man in order for us to be whole. That was one of the titles that I started out with that I mentioned earlier. We have to become whole. We cannot continue to fight ourselves. Now, it was a beautiful thing in the workshop because we had yet another teenager in this workshop, 17 years old, who was the same age as I was when I got my first kiss. And at the end of the workshops, or toward the end of each workshop on Sunday, we have what we call the love line. I've talked about the love line before, where everybody in the room gets to spend 2 to 3 minutes just looking into the eyes of another human being and looking into the windows of the soul. Well, I had the opportunity to do that with the teenager that was in this workshop, a young lady. And it was, the first part, I was like her grandfather. And the second part, it was like I was 17 again. And its tears flowed down her cheeks and her chin and dropped onto my hands. I felt a healing. I felt like my teenager was being healed. And it was the most beautiful experience for me. And from what she shared, it was a beautiful experience for her too. She was connecting with someone far out of her generation, a couple of generations removed almost. As I said, I was like her grandfather. But we're in a place, humans, all of you, we're in a place where we have the opportunity to heal the old wounds. It could be inner child wounds. It could be inner teenager wounds. It could be young adult wounds. It could be old adult wounds. Because we've all been wounded. As I said in part of what I shared in the workshop today, victims and victimizers are the way of our world. We've been programmed with victimization, and you're going to play on one side of that or the other. And we've all been victims, and we've all been victimizers. We have a chance to heal. We have a chance to let go of the past, to reframe it so that we can create a better present and a better future. Because we're moving into a realm where we're going to learn how to relate to ourselves by being honest, and how to relate to each other by being honest. As Shakespeare said in Hamlet, to thine own self be true, and as day follows night, thou canst not be false to another. We're learning to be true to ourselves. We're learning to tell ourselves the truth. And as we do that, the truth will set us free and liberate us from the wounds of the past. We've all wounded each other. We've all been wounded by each other. And one of the exercises we did today was forgiveness. If I have done anything, either intentionally or not intentionally, that has hurt you, please forgive me. And if you have done anything, either intentional or not intentional, that has hurt me, I forgive you. Let's forgive one another, and let's build a better tomorrow for humanity, for our children, for our grandchildren, for everyone that's going to come after us, and even for ourselves, because we're going to be able to live a whole lot longer than we've ever been able to live before if we'll let ourselves heal, if we'll let ourselves see that we don't have to follow all the rules of the past. We can be free. We can learn to love ourselves and to love each other in ways that heal the deep wounds of our psyche, of our soul, of our experience as human beings. It's a beautiful thing, and I thank you for listening. Namaste.